Welcome back to another episode of Into the Airbnb, where we talk with Airbnb hosts about their short-term rental experience. Our incredible guest for today is Robert Watts from Atlanta, Georgia, who manages 5 listings in Atlanta and Stone Mountain. Today, Robert will share with us about his story, experiences, and provide us some amazing tips to achieve high income with Airbnb. This episode is sponsored by Airbnb, the only one analytics dashboard for short-term rental investors and managers, where you can find precise Airbnb data such as occupancy rate, revenue, average daily rate, and so on. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So how did you get started in Airbnb and with short-term rental investing?
Airbnb was something that I stumbled upon. When I bought my first property here in Atlanta in 2013, I had no idea about Airbnb. I bought it as an investment property in mind in the future, but that was more so maybe just having a long-term tenant as opposed to a short-term rental. So when I found out about Airbnb, when I started staying in Airbnbs as a guest when I traveled, I loved it so much. I loved the idea, did more research about it. So after visiting so many different Airbnbs in different cities and countries and things of that nature, I decided to try it out during the week. So what I would do was use my personal condo unit. I would go stay with one of my fraternity brothers and see how it would work out. So I did it a few times on the weekend and it booked religiously every weekend, anytime that I opened the calendar up. So I said, well, this is interesting. I'm going to step out on faith and have this unit vacant 30 days out of the month. So full time vacancy and just go rent another place with hopes this profit from this unit paying for my rent in another location, another apartment. So long story short, I did that and started that in 2015 and never looked back. And it's been paying for itself and paying for other multiple locations and other things and other entrepreneur endeavors that I want to indulge in. So like I say and tell people about Airbnb, it's funny because most people still are not fully aware of what Airbnb could do and the profit that it could provide and a different method of passive income. So I tell people all the time, if you want to, understand Airbnb in this holistic perspective, I suggest that you stay as a guest first before you host an Airbnb unit yourself. So that's in a nutshell how I got into Airbnb.
That's great. And did you have no problems at first with hosting in your condo?
So initially, not at first. I would run into a few struggles dealing with maybe elderly neighbors that didn't understand what was going on. But that took communication and speaking with the board because again, I own my condo, so I would just really speak to the HOA and speak to other entrepreneurs that were finding out about Airbnb around the same time I did, and we just got together and formed a coalition of entrepreneurs and using our rental property as we are entitled to. So there years ago, back in, like I said, 2015, 2016, there was not as much hype as it is now with the restrictions and the legality features that the city is trying to promote at this moment, because it's been a big thing now, and a big, I wouldn't say issue, but a big obstacle that may arise. But just having your ducks in a row and doing what you're supposed to do and communicating with people about what you're doing with your property, it resolves a lot of issues. But more so now, I just feel like Airbnb became so big that the city wants a piece of the pie as well. So that's another story that we could definitely speak about, but it's not as bad as people are thinking. And they're doing this in every big city where tourist attraction is in demand. But that was the only obstacle that I had initially starting out. Now, I noticed one of your questions, I didn't want to jump ahead, but I know one of your questions was about the challenges of Airbnb.
Right.
And I can go into that if you want. I can tell you the biggest challenge dealing with Airbnb in the beginning and anytime, if you would like.
Yes, please, go ahead. No problem.
Okay. The biggest challenge for me, and I know other hosts, if they're doing it the way I do it, the biggest challenge is having and keeping a reliable cleaner. I'm gonna say that one more time. The biggest challenge is keeping a reliable cleaner because there's high turnover rate. So if you don't have a good cleaner, then you don't have a good business, period. Because your reviews are
Right.
going to show for. You're going to consistently get bad reviews regarding cleaning. And that's something that you don't want because they are hard to come back from, especially starting out. Your first 10 reviews when you start should always be 5 stars. If you get anything less than that, then it's going to be a struggle because when you had over 100 reviews, one bad review won't hurt. But when you have that first bad review out of your first 10, the system is just the algorithm, the metrics, it just throws everything off. So you'll be playing catch up for the rest of your journey, if you continue with Airbnb and that particular listing. Now you can go and possibly start your new listing and start fresh. But with that listing, and with that cleaning reputation, it kills you before you get started. I can't harp enough on having a reliable cleaner.
And how did you manage to get that one reliable cleaner?
It's the story of the prince and the princess and the frog. You have to kiss a lot of frogs before you find your prince. So you go through a lot of different cleaners. You want to have the best of the best, the ones that understand the system that you're trying to do, that have the same professionalism that you portray, efficient and responsive like you are. Just the way you want to run your business, you have to have almost a partner, but know that their role is to keep the cleanliness at tip top shape. Because when you're making money in booking, the cleaner is making money in booking. But if you're not booking, the cleaner is not making any money. So it's a win-win
Mm-hmm.
situation. And people
Right.
don't understand that it's a partnership when you're dealing with a cleaner. And they have to know that you are just as good as the business. Because if I'm not booking, then there's no work for you to clean. So it's a two-way street. So you can't do one without the other. You can't run a successful Airbnb location without a cleaner. And a cleaner can't find work if you're not booking anything.
Right, I understand. That's right. And is there any particular method you recommend to look for cleaners? For example, looking on a specific online page?
Yes, so I would say the most reputable asset is using the Facebook group, which I'm a part of. I'm a part of the Superhost group for Atlanta, and I'm a part of just the Airbnb host community on Facebook. Those groups seem to be pretty attentive and they are reputable because they send you good people when you ask, well, hey, I'm in the Decatur area, or hey, I'm in the Stone Mountain area, do you guys recommend in good cleaners? And 9 times out of 10, there are so many different hosts in the area that they are going to have one to maybe 5 different good cleaners that you can pick from because these hosts have experience with these cleaners and have used them. So it's better to go to a community where the cleaners and the hosts, are utilized 100% as opposed to reaching out with more so like a cold call as opposed to a warm call, because this is a warm transfer when you're speaking directly with other hosts because they know exactly the type of environment that you're in, and knowing that if you're a good location, you have about 8 to 10 bookings a month, and
Mm-hmm.
that's on average. So they would know that you need a good cleaner that, like I said, is attentive and that can respond and know that they may be cleaning one night and be back tomorrow the next day. So you can have, one minimum night bookings. Some people use that. Some people do 2 or 3 night minimum booking. With me and my experience, I would rather not leave any money on the table because you got to understand that a one night booking can easily yield you $200 after you include your cleaning fee. So it's about perspective and how you're running your business.
Oh, so you would recommend to do one night minimums?
That's my personal stance. I know if you have a bigger location, maybe like 4 to 5 bedroom house, then that may be different and more strenuous for the cleaner and that host to get that place clean for the next
Mm-hmm.
day. So most of the time when you see people that have 3 night minimum, it's because their location is much bigger. What I'm speaking about is 1 night minimum on a 1 to 2 bedroom condo unit or townhome.
I understand completely. And now I'd like to talk about your area. I understand that Atlanta is a very big and competitive market.
Yes.
How do you see it now? Is it more easier or harder to run Airbnb there?
So let me give you 2 scenarios. Pre-COVID, no. Pre-COVID, it was not difficult at all because none of these things and dynamics existed. Traveling was at the highest demand. Atlanta itself is a high tourist attraction destination city. We have one of the biggest and busiest airports in the world. So things like that play a pivotal role in having a successful Airbnb business because you constantly have that foot traffic, not only from your locals that come from the outskirts, that travel from the outskirts to hang out in the city for the weekend, but you have that tourist attraction from international travelers that were coming in that had never heard about Atlanta at all, but they know that the mountains are nearby, or they know that recreational parks are nearby, or for instance, the Georgia Aquarium, where you have the specific dolphin show that can't be seen everywhere. So it's just different dynamics that we're playing to our advantage as hosts in the area, but that's pre-COVID. So now post-COVID, afterwards, I would say that it has slowed down a little bit and we're more at a steady average as opposed to a high peak. And I think it's a little bit more difficult now is because so many dynamics have changed and the world has changed. So traveling has changed. And you have to adapt and pay attention to things of that nature and not be so rigid with how you used to run your Airbnb business. Know that you have to change to be more suitable for this type of guest, or you may have guests that now don't book so much during the week as they did before, and mostly now is the weekends or start from Thursday to Monday or Thursday to Sunday. And then your down days, you may have to adjust your price debating on how you want to run your business for essential workers or locals. So it's so many different dynamics that play into the Airbnb business from pre-COVID and post-COVID. So I always give 2 different scenarios anytime that I'm speaking with anybody about the business or just consultation, because you got to know these things before you get into this type of business and put money into a property or buy an investment property if that's what you decide to do. So I hope that helps. I just wanted to give you 2 different scenarios of what it was and how it is and what it's going to be. I don't think we're going to stay here. I think we're going to increase. I think travel is going to be one of the most demanding extracurricular activity type deals sometime soon. I'm thinking by this summer, a lot of things are going to continue to increase. So I would tell people and other hosts to get ready and enjoy the ride.
Yeah, I understand. And are there any more regulations right now that were before when you started?
Yes, like that current regulation that I was speaking to when I was answering your other question,
Mhm.
telling you that, Atlanta just submitted a leasing permit that you have to have, but we right now are still fighting it. The hosts, the super hosts, we're putting up a good fight, and we have an organization, like I said, that's on Facebook that's free to join, and they have hired a lawyer. We have a lawyer in place, and we are fighting it because they're making so many different specific aspects, trying to push and weed out a lot of different hosts to where they're not allowed to host. They're making different requirements like not being your primary resident, and that for one is could be damaging to a lot of hosts, because you got to understand most of these hosts that have Atlanta properties, they don't live here. They're West Coast, they're in New York, they're out of the country. This is not their primary residence.
Right.
So when you make that a requirement, that weeds out a lot of different hosts, and you mess up people's Airbnb business that may have 10 locations or more. So it's just different dynamics that they're trying to propose. But in my honest opinion, I just think that we are stronger. we're much stronger as a team, as a collective unit. And I think we're going to get past that and adjust the requirements, because, and it is not a big deal. It's $150 permit that you have to buy every year. But when you
Mm-hmm.
think about this was an expense that you have to worry about in the past that wasn't even thought of, then it makes a difference. You understand? It's just sometimes it's just, they make things that's unfair that is not in the best interest of the host. It's in the best interest of adding more city or state tax dollars, in my opinion. And that's just not right.
Yeah, I understand, and I completely agree with that. What about the specific areas you're hosting in? What is the seasonality like in there?
Okay, so I host a few locations here in Atlanta, in the city of
Mm-hmm.
Atlanta, and then I have co-hosting a property in Stone Mountain. Before COVID, pre-COVID, I hosted 10 locations, and majority was in Atlanta, Stone Mountain, and then one property that was in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, which was great because it was nearby the beach. And like I said, location is everything, and your spacing is everything. Most people don't know, but more people you can sleep, the more money that you can make.
Mm-hmm. And in the current listings you're hosting, what is your average occupancy rate like?
So high season occupancy rate between 80 and 90% a month. I would say on a low season, I would say 70 to 80% out of the month. And maybe my weekday will range anywhere between 75 and $85 a night. And that's just the rate, not including any other fees. And the weekend will range about $100 to 150. And that could fluctuate depending on if there's a concert, an art festival, if there's Dragon Con, or if there's America's Mart, just anything like that that could change the dynamics of the pricing. I adjust my own pricing, and that's what I suggest to any host. I don't use the price tip because they have a price tip that's embedded in the Airbnb site, and that's
Mm-hmm.
just for smart pricing for inexperienced hosts or beginner hosts that are starting out and don't know how to price their location. But for me, with the experience and knowing the things that I know, I just know how to price any type of location. I just need the comparables. I just look at comps based in the area or where you're located, and I can have a better idea of what the market demand is. But it changes every week. It changes because there's different events every week. So you can't project your price every week being the same because you'll miss out on a lot of money depending on what's going on in the city or wherever location out of the country, wherever you're at. You need to know about the events.
That's right. And you mentioned one of your units is near to an stadium, right?
Yes, see,
What usual kind of guest do you get there?
I get all type of different guests in this area and other units that I host in this area. We get locals, we get essential workers that want to be nearby the local hospitals, or they may have an assignment
Mm-hmm.
for a month or a week and they need to be here, and people adjust their time off your location because they want to see how long it takes them to get to their destination. And when you have a place that's close in the city, an exit away from the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and I mean the balcony from the units that I host over here, the balconies view I-20. So when you can see I-20 and you can get on I-20 to go east or west or wherever you need to go, that
Mm-hmm.
helps beat the traffic. And when you have a great location like that, you're 10, 15 minutes from the airport, 10, 15 minutes from the zoo, 10 minutes from downtown, 15 minutes from Buckhead, and your luxury lifestyle, luxury places that you want to visit, restaurants or lounges. One of the biggest parks, Piedmont Park, you're only 10 minutes away from there. Just different places that people want, the tours that the guests that want to get, even to the mountains, the Stone Mountain and Kennesaw Mountain. People that want to hike, you're still only about 30 minutes from there because you're in the city, you're downtown. So it's about location, and that has served us well. Like I said, since I've been doing it since 2015, and I know location is everything. That's one of the top reviews that I get is based on the location and the professionalism. But besides cleanliness as well, but their location is everything. So you always, always, always look at where you're located because it makes a big difference. A guest will book another listing over yours if it's located closer to where they need to be.
I see. So would you say one of the best locations is downtown Atlanta, or are there any other particular busy places out there.
Yes, I would say downtown will be the best because you got to understand when you're downtown or located nearby downtown, everywhere that you want to get, you can get there between 10 and 25 minutes, meaning your heavy transportation area like the airport, because that's where most people are coming from. And then
Mhm.
not only that, you're located by several different transit stations. When you speak about MARTA, you're near all those places. So some the guests here will speak about, hey, well, you're only like 5 to 10 minute walk to the MARTA or the bus station or the train station. That's perfect for what we're trying to do if they don't want to use Uber or Lyft, or if they only drive their own vehicle, which another thing, you definitely need to have parking.
Right.
Make sure you pick a location with, if not free parking, accessible parking, meaning that there's just nearby, but always look for free parking. Try to have a location with free parking on site. That will help you make a lot more money and not miss out on money and leave anything on the table because you don't have parking. A guest will choose another location over yours just because you don't have free parking. I've seen it, I've heard it, I've experienced it. So with different locations I've hosted. So, I always take the time to read my reviews and read my other location, the reviews, just because I can be in tune with my past guests so I can be more in tune with my future guests.
I understand. That's great advice, actually. Would you still recommend for people to invest in the city of Atlanta or in the state of Georgia?
Absolutely. There's a niche for every host. I would tell them, get in a good area wherever you decide, whether it's in Atlanta, whether it's in Decatur, whether it's in Stone Mountain, whether it's in Marietta. Just find your niche in that area and know, the things that are located around your area and the things that are going to be attracting different guests. Just know where you are and know that you need to be in a good space in the center of those things that your guests could enjoy. Make sure you get in the center of all of that. That way they can get to all those places that you can mention in your listing or your guidebook that you should create. You should always create a guidebook with all those things to do, all those places to eat, all those different trails and hikes to walk, all those different places to go and relax at a park or museum, all those historical sites. You should list all those things and you should try to be in the center of all of those things. So, depending on wherever you choose, just make sure that you're in the center of all the local attraction. It don't have to
Mhm.
be in the city of Atlanta. You can be in the city of Decatur. Maybe check out downtown Decatur and know that what's in that area for them to attend, what museums are there, what restaurants that they might like. You can suggest all those things in your guidebook as well, just so you can be redundant, because it's never a problem to be redundant when you're displaying your listing, because you want them to have all the guest information as possible and also put as much information as possible to be as detailed, so you won't have a guest questioning anything or wondering, I liked it the way this unit looked, but I don't have enough information to tell me what's around it, what's close to it, what's the
Mhm.
distance, how safe is it walkable, because some things you can't control, how the community or the neighborhood actually looks. Some things are under not in your control, so control what you can control, which is inside your location, because back when I first started, we had to fight to get fair reviews from guests,
Mhm.
because guests used to be able to review you on everything that's happening around you in the neighborhood and the community. And as well as I know, when you go to big major cities, you're going to have some bad areas and some good areas. Most of the time, you have your bad areas nearby the downtown area. That's just the way it is. You can go to LA, you can go to New York, and
Mhm.
you have those, homeless people that like to hang around those areas. That doesn't mean that you don't have a good location to book an Airbnb guest. So you shouldn't be allowed to rate me on things that I can't control. Only rate me on things that I can control, which is inside my unit and making sure it's clean and making sure I provide the common amenities and have extra things for you to enjoy, while you're here on your vacation or if you're here for work. So that was a whole nother story that we finally got that pushed across. See, a lot of these new hosts that are hosting now didn't have to bear that. They don't
Mm-hmm.
know anything about getting unfair reviews. We've been there. I even had to fight so much to where I've had bad reviews removed because I worked so hard. After they look over and look at your account and show where these guests are leaving consistent good reviews, and you have these one out of bad, 1 out of 10, or 1 out of 20, and it always has something to do with the neighborhood or community or things that are outside of your control. So they started realizing, well, if we keep doing this, we're only hurting our hosts, and if we're hurting our hosts, we're hurting our business as a collective unit, as an Airbnb business, because
Right.
without us, Airbnb is nothing.
I understand that. And would you mind sharing about some insights you're particularly getting? For example, your gross rental yield, your monthly income with Airbnb?
Yes. So monthly income, I'll give you for my personal unit anywhere
Mm-hmm.
between 2,200 and 2,500. That I'm just being conservative, but I would say that's the most consistent. Anywhere between there every month. So what's the math on that? You do that. I would say for a year, anywhere ranging about 30, 35 a year on a personal unit. And I'm speaking about a 1 bedroom unit, which is so awesome. I'm not even speaking about 2 to 3 bedrooms, just 1 bed, 1 bath. You can yield that much if you're professional, consistent, pricing your unit accordingly based on the demand of the city, based on events, based on your cleaning fee, things of that nature. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're pricing it right, and like I say, and you're getting constant bookings, about 8 to 10 bookings a month, you can easily yield that much a month, anywhere between 2,200 and 2,500.
That's a great number for real. And would you mind sharing like a little bit of your experience as a co-host?
Yes, yes. So as a co-host, most people didn't know about that as well. So I started a successful co-host business that's embedded inside my hosting business. I've made about $10,000 to $15,000 a year only on co-hosts. And I'm speaking about a couple of different locations. And this is passive income, that you paid out, and you only thing you did was co-host this location. It's not even your property. And that's amazing to me, because that's untapped money, people still have not like delved into and really took the time to understand that you should always work smarter, not harder. So
Mm-hmm.
if I know how to utilize my professionalism and my skills and show that I'm running my successful unit at tip top shape, what make you think another host that don't have time, that has a demanding job or may still have a corporate job, wouldn't trust me to host their locations just as good as mine? That's the only thing. You got tons of different hosts and tons of different personalities and backgrounds. Every host is not an entrepreneur. Most hosts have a corporate job. So they don't have the time to run their locations. So they may have the capital to fund more than one property, but they don't have the time to actually communicate and run the day-to-day operations with the cleaner and maintenance and things of that such to organize and run that effectively. So they will pass off to a co-host that will have the time to make sure that that location is ran properly and has, 5-star reviews, because it's all about the reviews. And I always suggest to hosts to wait to protect your property, because we have a $1 million host guarantee insurance that's covered. That's always been covered since I started. So I've always felt good about that. Anything that has been broken, stolen, anything like that, I've always been, reimbursed and taken care of. And, you submit the claim to Airbnb, and they research it and
That's
they
right.
investigate and make sure that you're, under the host guarantee insurance policy, that you're, reimbursed for things that, unfortunate circumstances. So that's definitely true. I am
That's
a
great.
witness. Yeah, man, yeah, and I'm very grateful for that, because they understand, like I said, this is a partnership. This is no one working for anybody. We're hosts and you are the Airbnb a company or organization. So this is a partnership. You know that you're no better without us. And we have to utilize that mentality more so and leverage to know that you matter. as a host, and you matter as a guest. That's the reason that a guest is able to leave a host a review, and a host is able to leave the guest a review. It works both ways. So I always implore a host make sure that they read the guest reviews, the past guest reviews in its entirety to make sure that you protect your unit and know that
Mm-hmm.
you're hosting a good guest. Because
That's
that's
right.
the last thing that you want to do is host a bad guest and they tear up your property, because that causes you delay, that causes you to have to close your calendar because you have to fix and renovate and adjust the issue before you allow another guest. So
That's right.
yeah, it's a number of things that a bad guest can cause you, and money and time is two of the things that you don't want to lose. You definitely want to own your time, and you definitely want to control how your money is spent and the money flow as far as your passive income. So there are little nuances that you should always pay attention to, and those are the details that you should pay attention to for sure to keep your your money flow consistently and keep your listing at tip top shape.
Yeah, I agree with that. And lastly, are there any tips that you'd like to share for other Airbnb hosts?
I These are things that I suggest. I would always suggest to own versus rent
Mm-hmm.
on the property, because there are a lot of hosts that are subleasing, which is okay
That's right.
if you want to begin and learn that you only be making a little amount of profit if any, because you got to understand when you're subleasing you have to cover the rent each month, so you have to take care of that first before you start making profit. That's why I propose owning your location versus rent. Secondly, I will always tell you to get a location and the most bedrooms that you can get or that you can afford, because I told you earlier and mentioned that the more people that you can sleep, the more money you can make. Another tip is to, which you know how you have a profile photo on your hosting link. I will always say not to use your personal photo. You should always use a picture of the city or the skyline or anything that is attractive in your area, just
That's
because
right.
you won't be prejudged by any guests. I know that may be kind of harsh, but it is just honest and transparent, and you have to know that you will be judged. And it's unfortunate that guests do that, but that's just the nature of the business. So another tip will be to start with either a townhome or a condo versus a house, unless you have that type of capital ready and time to look after that house. Another tip is to be professional at all time and readily available when you're speaking with guests. You don't ever want a guest waiting 30 minutes to an hour to hear a response from you. In my opinion, that's a no-go. You shouldn't be in the business at all if you can't respond in a timely fashion, because that's not attractive. It lets me know that either you don't have the time or you're not personable enough to connect with that guest, because a
Mm-hmm.
guest connects immediately with you after they send you that first message. There's an instant connection, and you got to understand that that's your first impression. Just because you're not personally able to meet them don't mean that this is not the first impression.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to understand that that rule still applies. This is your first impression. So you have to be attentive and respond in a timely fashion.
Yes, that's right.
All right. And another tip would be to have at least 25 to 30 photos on your listing, and make
Mm-hmm.
sure that they're well lit, good lighting area. Not only that, but make sure that you take nighttime photos as well. Also, I
Right.
spoke about make sure that you read the guest reviews in its entirety before accepting a guest booking. And also, I would suggest doing 3 p.m. check ins and 11 a.m. checkouts. I would suggest those times because those are closely in standard time with the hotels, and most
Mm-hmm.
people are already used to it. So why not keep that same flow as far as timing and professionalism as far as your structure? Not only that, it gives your cleaner enough time to turn over your unit or your location from
That's right.
11 to 3. That's
Mm-hmm.
enough time to make sure that everything is washed and dried and all of those things. Another tip would be to create a guidebook.
Mm-hmm.
And I mentioned that earlier. A guidebook will show photos of the tourist attractions. It show photos of your recommended restaurants or places that are nearby in walking distance. You can list the different mountains and hiking trails. You list all the specifics about your unit and what your location and your area provides in your guidebook.
That's right. Those were really great tips. Thank you for that. Really
Oh,
useful as well. This is all the time we have today. Thank you for your time and thank you for your tips.
no worries. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to Into the Airbnb. We're looking for hosts and other people in the short-term rental industry to interview. If you had what we need and would like to share your experience in this podcast, please send us an email. All the info is at the end of the description.